over there as well. And in '98, I just decided I needed to do something different. Went into real estate, ran a real estate business, property management, HOA management, sales. Loved it and enjoyed that for a number of years. And after the recession, during the recession, I needed to figure out a way to make some money again. Sales and rental management wasn't holding its end of the bargain. So I went back into law enforcement, became the deputy chief of police in Fountain, and was down there for 4 years. Ran for sheriff in 2014, and was elected as the 28th sheriff of El Paso County and took office January 1st of 2015.
Good morning, everybody. It is impressive to see so many people here so early, and I very much value your precious time. I'm looking forward to telling you a little bit about the police department and telling you what the sheriff and I have got working together. But it's really nice to see so many people here so early in the morning. Thank goodness for the coffee. Thank you very much for the invite.
It's actually Sarah's doing. She's the copy.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. I was actually, my story, my personal story is a little different than Bill's. I was born and raised back east in the Philadelphia area. I came out here in the early '80s and actually started my law enforcement career with the El Paso County Sheriff's Office as a deputy sheriff. And I made the switch a few years later, but I kind of joke about law enforcement and my job. I really don't know what I'd do if I had to get a real job. I love working as a police officer so much. It really is something else. And I've had kind of a similar career path to Bill. I've worked a lot in patrol. Metro narcotics was probably one of my favorite assignments. I ran our tactical enforcement unit, major crimes unit. I worked at the training academy too. So I've been kind of blessed to move around a little bit and serve the community in a lot of different positions on the police department. About 5 years ago, when Chief Richard Myers retired, and then Mayor Steve Bach gave me one of those mafia offers I couldn't refuse, and asked me if I wanted the job, and I kind of shook my head a little bit this way, maybe not enough that way, I don't know. But it's been about 5 years, and it's been an interesting 5 years. There's been Waldo Canyon fires, Black Forest fires, some pretty big events like Planned Parenthood and things like that. But throughout the years, in the last 5 years, especially since Bill has taken over leadership of the El Paso County Sheriff's Office, it's been a blessing to work with him because we roll our sleeves up together. And when the big things come along, and we're 3 or 5 years out, figuring out what we're going to do in a few years, we do it together, and that's I'll just say it's a very refreshing change in this area in the last 8 or 10 years. So it's been working out really well. I don't think we always agree, but we work it out and we figure it out. So it's been going really well. There's some really big projects and programs we're kind of collaborating on. And I think we're going to do it cheaper and better over the long haul, working together than apart.
Pete makes a comment. We spend so much time together. We do probably 2 or 3 different meetings or events every single week. He says one week we were together, I think every day in a week. He said we spend so much time together that we need to stand up. And we'd probably be married in a couple of states. It's
Okay.
But we do a lot of projects together. A lot of the long-range planning that we do for public safety needs in El Paso County and Colorado Springs. It's cheaper. It's for the community. It's better for the community that we look at ways to do things together, like our body camera program, like our records management program. We're looking at evidence storage issues. We're looking at downtown patrols. Pete needed to beef up downtown patrols, and we committed personnel to help with that as we kick that program off. And there's just a lot of things. We increased our assistance to the Metro Narcotics, Vice and Narcotics and Intelligence Unit. And we do that because it's all our community. And the more we can work together to provide a safe community, the more vibrant our community is, and we know that. And we know that we can't always go to the well for more money without making sure that we have proven that we've done everything we can with the resources we've got.
I think kind of a telling sign of the changing of the guard maybe when leadership change at the Sheriff's Office and CSPD is, I think one of the first official actions Sheriff Felder did when he took over was he brought all my 700 or so police officers in and swore them in and gave them El Paso County commissions. And that hasn't happened in a long, long time around here. And that basically means that my officers, if they're in an area that may or may not be right on the border of the county and the city, they can still do their job without having to worry about jurisdictional issues and things like that. The way the law is set up in Colorado, if an El Paso County deputy sheriff is with the city police officer, we then have the authority of that sheriff's deputy. But there's a small number of times when that doesn't happen, and it kind of changes things. If we're chasing a bank robber, somewhere off the Powers, and he makes it into Cimarron Hills, and your folks aren't there right away. This kind of is a good, legal, safe way to do it. So all my folks, up to and including me, have an El Paso County commission that we haven't had in, gosh, a long time.
Yeah, I think probably the early 90s, when Bernie Berry was the sheriff, there's pockets. The area around Austin Bluffs and Meadowland, in that area, there's pockets over there that
all the streets, Diamond and Sapphire and all
yeah,
that.
all the gem streets.
That's in the county.
That's all in the county, and there's some pockets up on north of that, or North Academy, and it just makes sense. And we did the same for Fountain. That way, if there's a cross border, because burglars and bandits, they don't know the difference, and they can care less. And so for us, it just makes it that much smoother. The other thing it does is it really creates a lot better working relationship between the guys, between the cops on the street. I think they feel a different bond at this point.
Let's maybe talk real quickly, jump into a couple topics. Body-worn cameras. That's a big deal nationally. And I think one of the questions that Sarah kind of said get ready for is what's the most pressing issue and the biggest issue. And so I'll kind of tie those two together. It seems like the national sentiment about having a lower level of trust for police departments and law enforcement officers, it's amazing what affects you thousands of miles away. And we've been seeing this ever since the days of Ferguson, Missouri. And gosh, we've probably done 40 or 50 community conversations about that since then. But there's a lot of things going on in the country that absolutely affect how we deliver our police services here. I ask my cops every week, how's it going out there? What are you seeing from our community? And I'll just say flat out, whatever neighborhood you're in or part of the city you're in, I believe that, and I think I can speak for you, I think we're blessed. We have a high level of support, but it's different now. I will say that. I think that people are way more ready to test police officers. I think that the level of trust has gone down. And I think that an example of, I have an officer that he's a pretty good guy, and he's a guy that gets along with everybody. And he said, oh, here, Chief, here's what happened to me last week. I was somewhere off of, I believe, South Academy, somewhere near Hancock, investigating a pretty simple traffic accident. Someone had rear-ended another car, and they pulled off into the shopping center right there. And I was just trying to get the exchange of information and get things sorted out. And a lady parked on Academy, and I got out of the car and just started yelling and screaming at me. She wasn't involved in the accident at all, but she definitely pitched her complaints as a racial situation to the way I was investigating the accident, to the point where this officer, he said that he advised her 6 times to get out of South Academy, southbound lanes, because he was afraid she was going to get run over. And he said that happens more and more now, where people are not even involved in a police presence or police situation, especially downtown, and challenge the police officers either verbally or directly in their face, to the point where it's almost an interference deal. So leads me to my, my conversation about body-worn cameras. We've done a lot of stakeholder process, both the sheriff and I, in this community, and I think we both believe it's a good fit for Colorado Springs and El Paso County to give our officers body-worn cameras. Having said that, it's not cheap. We've been looking at some of the numbers. I know Bill will talk about that. We were both very fortunate to get some federal grants and funding and things like that, but over the course of a year, I'm kind of pretty much self-contained now for the first 2 years. We just rolled them out last week, but in 2 years' time, that will be costing me about $500,000 a year if prices stay the same. In my world of budgets and things like that, $500,000 to me is taking 5 cops off the street. You know, so life's a trade-off, right? I have a $110 million budget, but $500,000 makes me swallow pretty hard. And the vast majority of that goes into data storage. It's not equipment and things like that. We were just talking before this meeting started, how many people it's going to take, non-sworn, in other words, admin folks and office folks, to control and manage all that data when it comes in. I hired 2 full-time people just to do that. Was a few months ago talking to the Denver police chief. They're a little bit ahead of us, about a year ahead of us on cameras. And he advised me that he hired 10 people full-time just to manage all the data of their body-worn camera program, and he regrets it. He thinks he needs another 10. So it's those things. Is it worth it? Is that level of transparency and accountability worth it in our community? My answer right now is yes, but it ain't cheap.
Yeah, I agree. You know, we started the project together and started the study and all of the work together on it. We did that because we think that we can leverage buying more, we can get them cheaper, and we can duplicate the process. We'll use the exact same cameras. I think you rolled out the first group to Gold Hill?
Yeah, this part of town, the southwest part of town. And that was on purpose because it covers downtown too, which is a lot of day-to-day contacts. So about 65 cameras went out last week, and by the end of the year we're going to put 500 cameras in play, and just about anybody who's in uniform who has daily contact with the public will be wearing cameras.
Right, so they'll have their cameras out right after they finish rolling theirs out. Ours will roll out. We're doing that as kind of a measured release of the processes, and we're going to roll out about 150 cameras in that, right, Mitch? About 150. And so those will start right at the first of the year. It's just it's an expensive, time-consuming process to get those out, but we wanted to put that thing on. We wanted to make sure that we did it right the first time, or at least as right as we can get it. And so I think, you know, I'm excited. I think the biggest piece of this is relationship building with our community, the whole transparency thing. And part of it is, how do we develop those relationships? How do we work out how to be more involved in our community so that when something happens, that we've built that trust up and we don't have something explode like it has in other communities. And it's not easy.
I'll just share with you that a lot of the bigger metropolitan areas that have gone to cameras are finding some interesting feedback, and that and it's kind of strange because you would think that as the bar gets heightened with transparency and accountability, it resolves a lot of issues, but a lot of the bigger communities are finding that's not the case. And they're also finding that body-worn cameras eliminate about 90% of the complaints against, and I keep saying police officers, but I mean law enforcement officers. So if I say cops or police officers, I'm talking about
right.
Uniformed law enforcement. It's eliminating about 90% of the complaints, but it's not making the relationship any better.
How does those complaints, like within your budget, how does that offset it? Because you're not receiving those complaints anymore, how does that offset your budget? How much money is that?
So I have 4 internal affairs full-time people plus a lieutenant working in internal affairs. And if at some point in the future, the minute I can return any of those positions back to patrol because there's less complaints, I will. That's going to take a little time to tell. So potentially, I'll need less people in IA, in internal affairs, investigating those complaints. But one of the most important things you can do in a police department is make sure that there's some system of accountability if someone wants to call in a complaint. We actually have brochures all over the place in our stations, in our operations centers. This is how you complain on an officer. Here's a brochure. There's actually brochures too that say this is how you can compliment or give accolades to an officer. We use the other ones a little bit more than that, but I don't know what that says. But I anticipate that if that actually happens, that trend happens here, and that let's say 75 to 90% go away. But in order to get there, you have to still investigate. What I personally find that a lot of complaints, do you know what the #1 complaint against a police officer is in this community? Excessive force, does anyone think it's that?
Rudeness?
It's courtesy, yeah, yes sir, it's courtesy. It's what comes out of your mouth. And I think that these cameras, because they catch audio as well as the video, I think that's gonna, it's gonna show how important that is to our officers, and I think it's gonna eliminate most of those. One of the questions that we kind of struggled with when we developed our policy is, should I, as a matter of policy, have to tell you that I have a camera on as a police officer when I contact you? Grant, how you doing? I got a call because the bar owner said you keep throwing ashtrays through the window. I'm Officer Pete Carey. I want you to know that I have a camera on and I am filming it. Unless Grant is really drunk or really dumb, he's going to be really careful about what he says next. And I think the way we build into our policy is probably the best way to do it. When practical, I should be able to say that. We did a 6-month pilot with our cameras in town here, and we found that when cameras are on and people know that the cameras are on as far as the public, it calms people down. They think a little bit about what comes out of their mouth and what they do next as far as the level of assistance they offer, but not everybody. There's probably about 10% or so that kind of roll their sleeves up and say, okay, let's go, thinking they're going to be on like YouTube that night or something.
You know, and it's not just the cameras and the transparency, it's the relationships that we build. That's why we spend so many times talking to organizations like this. We sit and we want to build relationships with our community, the community leaders, and it's not easy to do. We have to find places where we are accepted, where they want to have a relationship in the first place. Otherwise, we have to first start that by building trust. We have to know that the people we're meeting with trust the things that we're trying to do. And it's a long process. We started doing this 1.5 years ago, building up to this camera program, and it's a great idea. But now the whole point is once you learn about it, we count on the fact that you'll take this back to your organizations and you'll share it with your groups, and you'll talk about how you met us, and you'll ask the hard questions when you can. But we look for every opportunity we can, and it's a nonstop project.
But bottom line is, even though it seems like it resolves most complaints because the camera is kind of an objective view of the thing, you still need someone to look into that and make sure that you've got the whole story.
Right.
But I think in time it's going to show that. You know, we first started talking about cameras a year and a half ago. We get a room about this size, and I'd ask, you know, by a show of hands, and I don't have to do it this morning, but I'd say, hey, who thinks cameras are a good idea in our area? And virtually every hand would go up, and I said, leave your hand up if you're okay with the next time you call a police officer. He comes in your house to help you out because you're a victim of a crime and the camera's running inside your house. About 1/3 to half of the hands go down there like, well, I'm okay with it being filmed in your house, but I'm not so sure about my house. That's my privacy. So that's the deal. And then through a series of probably dozens of meetings, we'd ask the community, and we'd have everyone from the NAACP to Tessa, one of the victim organizations, to ACLU would come and appear. And it was clear to me, and it's still clear to me, that most of the big groups, especially that have a national voice, absolutely don't agree on how you share that information. I mean, there's one of those groups I just mentioned that says, once you take video as a police officer, and it's not used in any kind of evidentiary or court case, no human eye should ever watch that again. And there's other groups that say, you know what, I paid for that $500,000 a year, that's my money. I should be able to come down to the police station and demand the video of my neighbor's house, the inside of my neighbor's house. I mean, think about the person that, if we said, you know what, you come in and you fill it out, and we'll give you the video, you pay for it. So you get the guy that wants to come in, and all he wants to do is look at video of DUI stops in the last year of 25 to 35-year-old women. You know, I'll pay the money. Am I going to give him that video? No way.
You know, and the attitude about videos has changed. You know, 2 years ago, 1.5 years ago, when we started having a conversation, if we had asked a room like this and said, how many of you think we should have a policy and spend the money, spend $500,000 to $750,000 a year on body-worn cameras, raise your hand. Maybe half of you, maybe 1/3 of you would have agreed. Now that this has changed and the conversation has changed throughout the United States, I would make you a bet that the majority of people in here, if not everyone, would agree that body cameras are the way that everybody's got to go. And we see that more and more. And it depends on the group, it depends on the makeup of the organization, on whether or not they agree to that. But when they agree to that, like Pete said, it's $500,000 a year to run for CSPD, and it's going to be another $250,000 a year for us to run it at the sheriff's office. And it is a significant impact to our budget. And when we are trying to be as transparent as possible, we get it. We understand that that it's gonna happen. But, you know, the sheriff's office has a bigger function. Go ahead.
What's the policy of when you turn them on?
Yes.
So, pretty much whenever you're involved in a contact with the community member. That's pretty much the bottom line. And that's the big rub in most body-worn camera issues. If you leave it up to the cop, who knows, he's going to say something wrong or do something stupid, and he doesn't have to turn that on, that's ridiculous. So the bottom line is, you're going to see most of our officers in uniform, and when they're involved in a contact with the community, they ought to have it on, unless there's a victim reason why it's not a good idea. The only time that changes, ma'am, is we made a modification in our policy for our school resource officers. They can walk around all day in the schools, but if they think they're going to get into a hands-on physical altercation, and unfortunately that happens in our 15 schools in the city, high schools, I don't know how many you have. Yeah, so there's 25 or so schools. They'll be off unless our officers think they're going to be involved in some kind of hands-on kind of situation, and that does happen from time to time. But for the most part, if the cops talk to somebody or dealing with a situation, unless it's just a direct victim deal and that would cause more victimization, that camera's going to be on. And we have discipline built into the policy. If Pete forgets to do that every once in a while, that's fine. If Pete forgets to do it 15 times a day, there's an issue with Pete, and I'm going to get it squared away. So there was an unfortunate deal in Fountain about a year ago where a Fountain police officer pulled on scene and ended up, I think, shooting and killing a 17-year-old young man in the bathroom of his house. And as he got out of the car, the mom of this kid, I guess he was armed with a gun and was waving and trying to get this officer inside pretty quickly. And I think as he got out of the car, he thought he pressed the activation button and didn't film it. That's going to happen. And these things are imperfect too. You're not going to catch all the angles and all that stuff. I think it's absolutely going to show an objective picture of what happened, but it's not going to work all the time. But for the most part, if a cop is out talking to somebody and involved in an interaction, that camera will be rolling.
I'm going to just interrupt for a little bit because
Our time is up already.
No. You guys got started before I was prepared, actually. So I'm going to do a couple. Yeah, I owe you. A couple of quick housekeeping things. We have two restrooms. One right here behind that map, and one on the other side of the door. Second door on the left. I just wanted to say quickly, we really appreciate Einstein Brothers for their bagels and the Prospect Farm. This young lady brought in some chocolate chip pumpkin bread, which is sitting over there. Somebody, you guys might like me to. Sorry. We got people going, and then we'll end about 8:45 or so, and give you all a chance to talk informally. If you guys can stay around for that, that'd be great. Sure. And one of the things that we were kind of interested in having you talk about, besides the body-worn cameras, which has been a great conversation, is any staffing challenges that you guys are facing right now, and how do you work together? You started to talk about that a little bit. We'd love to have that explored, but I think it's also time for other questions as well. So, Gina.
Good morning. I have two questions. First one, if you can comment on it, great. But what has been the position that either District Attorney's Office and or City Attorney's Office has taken with regard to body-worn cameras? And my second question is, if there are no legal proceedings, for how long is your procedure on keeping those records?
Go ahead. You have had this, well, the District Attorney's Office working with us in the development of policy, in the development of how we keep anything that has legal proceedings as evidence. Go ahead and talk about the policy, the length of time, and then.
So we've been hand in hand with the District Attorney's Office since we applied for our grant and got accepted on that. So we're pretty squared away with them. For the most part, with the DA's office, it's a piece of evidence, and it's more about process. How do we get that data over there, and who's going to manage that? Who's going to get it ready for the court case? So we're in good shape with that. And the district attorney absolutely supports it. It's another piece of evidence in a critical case. And they're usually the cases where, where our officers involved in an in-progress crime, where they, you know, their actions do something. It's not always, you know, an officer involved shooting or something like that, but it's an in-progress crime. Or it's when I'm talking to somebody, and I'm sitting across the table from them, and I say, hey, did you steal that car? Would you rather have me write down, she said she stole the car, or actually say, I stole the car, I needed a ride. And when we do major crimes now, we always videotape that and film it. So now all of our officers are going to have that opportunity. So we're in good shape on that. And I think the district attorney's office and police department, sheriff's office are just trying to work out the process. How do we get that data over there? How do we get it, kind of put a big bowl around it and get it ready for the case? Your other question was 30 days. If we take a video of somebody and it's not needed for a criminal prosecution, in 30 days it's erased and it's gone forever. And that's kind of comports with state records keeping and things like that in 30 days or so. We have downtown cameras. We have about 15 of those downtown, and in about 30 days that goes away. It's not used in an evidence in a case or something like that. And there's a value to keeping it for about 4 weeks. If, let's say, come Friday night, our officers in front of one of the bars downtown dealing with a situation, and they're filming something that's going on out there, and they happen to inadvertently catch somebody that comes and goes in the picture and gets in the car and leaves, and then a week later we discover that that person is missing, or possibly even the victim of a homicide or something like that. And we find out that we have that film, and we should be able to discover that in 2 or 3 or 4 weeks and actually follow up in that case. We'd like to have that license plate 3 weeks later. So there's some good reasons for that, and it comports with Colorado state law on how long you should keep it if it's not evidence. One concern I will share just publicly about cameras is, I believe that in 3 or 4 years, when every police department in the country has cameras, I believe that a police officer testifies in court and doesn't have video footage backing up what he or she is saying is going to be a problem. I think that we're just going to have that standard saying, hey, well, I was sitting across the table from her and she said she stole the car. Show me the video. And if you say I didn't film it, or there's a reason why, legit or not, I worry about the credibility of our officers in a few years if you don't have that. But that's the future. That's the way it's going.
I think it's a valid concern. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, the other thing is, there's a big difference, and a lot of people don't know the difference between the sheriff's office and the police department. While we do law enforcement, public safety pieces, we also run the largest jail in the state of Colorado. Our facility today has 1,723 inmates. 1,723, that is considerably larger than any other jail in the state, with the exception of the city and county of Denver jail. We have a little over 350 women in that facility, and it's pre-confinement or anything under 2 years in sentencing. And so it's a large facility. We feed them 3 meals a day, 2 hots and a sack lunch. We move roughly 300 inmates a day to and from the criminal justice center from the courthouse.
You putting cameras in your
And we are not going to put cameras on those deputies. They are in contact constantly with inmates, and they are constantly receiving complaints. And we don't have the money, and you don't want the money to spend the money to video and record every single inmate contact. It's just, and it may come to that, but it's a big deal. Size-wise, El Paso County is the largest county in Colorado. We patrol more miles than any other sheriff's office in the state, and we do it with roughly 79 patrol deputies that work 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. It's a big operation. His budget's a little over $100 million. Ours is right at about $72 million right now.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Like, how do you as a citizen protect yourself from, because since we've been here, experienced fabrication that been blown out of proportion. So how do you protect yourself? Because I've been walking around with my camera and I'm recording, talking to especially when we come in contact with an officer. I hate to be that way, but that's just how it is. But when we come in contact with other people, officer will be called. So how do you protect yourself as a citizen when people fabricate stuff?
You know, I think it's probably the same thing that you've been doing. You know, like we've been talking about, we will be rolling out our camera systems here shortly. Part of them are already out. I think that's the best you can do.
Just continue and do my documentation?
Yeah, exactly.
Because I've been running across a lot of people feeling the need to stretch the truth farther than it really need to be, and over exaggerating when you